Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. If I'm not mistaken, I have half an hour. Do I? Yeah. Okay. So, very briefly, we do research, education, and strategic consulting on technology, and my today's topic will be about blockchain. And I'm really impressed how much is going on here in Cyprus on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So our plan for today. Let's talk about everything. Let's have a helicopter view. Let's try to understand what blockchain is. Very important question, why now? Let's try to distinguish Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies from the technology itself. A little bit about regulation, market, money, some cases, and we'll try to fit this whole plan into 30 minutes. So, about helicopter view. Actually, just a few seconds for this picture. I think it reflects a lot happening about blockchain, because it seems like the technology is quite uneasy to understand when you try to dig deeper. I'll start with this figure. So, World Economic Forum gave this 10% of global GDP will be stored in blockchain by 2027, and it seems like a huge number. I would like to introduce you to this hype cycle. Please let me know who is aware of this framework. Okay, so very briefly, every technology has its own way through this life cycle, and at the very beginning, it is very immature, and then it goes to the so-called plateau of productivity. And you can see this peak of inflated expectation up there when everybody is expecting something from the technology. So if we look at the blockchain, this is last year's hype cycle. We see it past this hype cycle, and it's going beyond it, and probably in 5 to 10 years it will be generally adopted. And when we talk about blockchain in general, it is a very, very big topic. So if we start looking into blockchain connected to different industries, it also has different positioning on this hype cycle. So let's say blockchain in government and blockchain in financial technologies, it is more to the right, so it's more mature. And let's say blockchain for advertising or blockchain in gaming, it is at much earlier stages. So what is blockchain? What is blockchain? Definitely it will change everything, as we hear every day, right? And there are three definitions here. So it's a digital registry distributed between independent computers in decentralized network. It is a continuous sequential chain of blocks. It is open, distributed, and secure registry. And those are three definitions from some reputable sources. And we saw about 80 different definitions of blockchain. And I personally like this one. This is from a book called The Truth Machine. I very recommend it for your reading. It is quite visionary. So I split this definition into 6 core points. It is a distributed, it is a append-only ledger of probably signed sequential links and cryptographically secured transactions that's replicated across a network of computer nodes with ongoing updates determined by a software-driven consensus. So let's have a deeper look at those 6 points. So distributed means that the ledger is stored not in one place, but in several places, right? Append only, we already discussed it on the previous session, that data is impossible to change. It only appends to the ledger. And well, you can think about the block in blockchain like a box with some data, and all the blocks are connected to the previous blocks with some specific key, so you cannot go back a year and try to fill in this chain of blocks, because it just it's not possible. Okay, it's probably signed, so private and public keys are used. You can treat a public key as let's say an account number, like your bank account number, and your private key is like a PIN code or a password, something that you use to access this data and add the data. So as for sequential linked, the chain of block is endless from the beginning of times till the eternity, and cryptographic security guarantees integrity. So it's all about mathematics and cryptography. As for replicated information, all the nodes, all the computers in the network, they get the same information, so the ledger is replicated onto all the participants in the network. And as for consensus, actually consensus is the key word when we talk about blockchain and distributed ledgers. This is how the information is stored, which governance mechanisms are used, and proof of work is one of the key algorithm consensus. So actually, what's important here is that you don't click anything. It just happens because some software, according to some algorithms, writes the data. So this was the boring part. Let's move to more exciting part. Why now? We thought a lot about this issue, and I would like to start with this picture. I think it reflects the beginning of times where people lived in small communities, and actually, you can imagine when there are 20 people trying to survive in some old community. Everybody knows who is responsible for anything. So everybody knows who is the hunter, who killed the boar. Everybody knows who is managing the fire in the cave, and so on. But when the people communities expanded and started to grow, it was impossible to fix and to note who did something. So people invented writing, they invented ledgers, and they invented currencies. And those are the first ledgers written in stone, approximately 3,000 years, or actually 5,000 years before now. And the next step in expansion was the age of discovery, when it was possible to trade between countries, because, well, actually, the ships that were built were able to go to far distances, and the issue that the civilization had to solve, how to manage those risks, because if you give your captain a bag of coins, some golden coins or whatever, he can be attacked by pirates. The captain can be some shady guy who just steals the money, or some storm can kill the whole ship and the whole team. So they had to invent what's called double entry bookkeeping, and it actually facilitated capital flows. And the Medici family was behind those innovations. And in order for this mechanism to work, bankers became trusted third parties to keep those ledgers. So 500 years after, the internet happened. So it was the ARPANET, which was the network for scholars, scientists, and military in the US. And the internet was born in 1983. And as you see in this very famous picture from the New Yorker from 1993, on the internet, nobody knows you are a dog. So this is purely a decentralized network that allows you to be whoever you want to be, but you don't trust nobody on the internet, because you don't know who is behind this Johnny Boy 28 nickname, right? You cannot make contracts, you cannot make trade with the people on the other side of the world, but you can communicate freely and almost free. So there was some group of engineers who were thinking how the internet will change the way we behave, and how the internet can be managed by governments and by banks who will try to control it. And they were called cypherpunks and crypto-anarchists. And there are many famous people like David Chaum, who is named the godfather of electronic cash, and he is a famous cryptographer, and Timothy May, and so on. So they were thinking how we can still keep the internet a democratic place with no control, and how the big brother will influence it in future. So the next very important step is 1995, when the encryption happened, and you know this HTTPS in your browser, which actually reflects the so-called SSL protocol, which actually, what it does, it secures and it encrypts the data between different parties. So when it happens, the e-commerce boom occurred because Visa and PayPal and eBay, they were able to use this infrastructure of internet, and in order for it to work, we had to combine this decentralized nature of internet to combine with this mechanism that was known from the early ages, with the intermediary, with the trusted third party sitting in the middle. And then this happened in 2008, which actually the problem with the bookkeeping, right? So the world economic crisis in 2008 was a trust crisis, when we somehow understood that we cannot trust intermediaries and third parties because somehow they can fake their books. And well, blockchain is called the trust machine, or the truth machine. Here is the cover from The Economist of 2015. So blockchain was called the machine for creating trust, and actually its applications are far beyond cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency is just one application. And one of the visionaries, here is Steve Wozniak, Apple co-founder, he says that blockchain will be the next major revolution in the course of the next 10 years. So what about Bitcoin? Bitcoin, well, we know Bitcoin, and we know that it is somehow connected with the blockchain. And in simple words, blockchain to Bitcoin is what internet to email. So blockchain is infrastructure, it is technology, and Bitcoin is one of the cryptocurrencies that's built using this technology. Like we use email as an application, and on the infrastructure layer we have internet that allows email to work. So in the very 2018, the same year when the world economic crisis happened, there was a paper, a very small paper, scholarly paper, which was called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which was authored by somebody called Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody knows who he or she or they are, because it can be some programmer or a group of programmers, or there are other ideas about who was behind it. But no matter what, it gives us the concept of a new peer-to-peer electronic cash system that uses cryptography to increase trust, but does not require any intermediaries or any third parties in the middle for us to trust each other. And if we see this graph about Bitcoin capitalization in January 2018, it was over 300 billion US dollars. That's a lot of money. And well, we can read this article, like, so that's the Bitcoin of the end of Bitcoin then, right? Because it always falls down, and probably every month there is an article in some reputable paper that it is the end of Bitcoin. But this article is actually from 2011, and we'll see how it goes, because it's still there, and it is much more about cryptocurrencies actually beyond Bitcoin. So let's compare it to December of 2013. So Bitcoin was worth slightly more than 1,000 US dollars in 2013, and then in 2017 it was worth almost 20K. Now it's around slightly less than 10,000 US dollar per Bitcoin. So actually, people that are involved in cryptocurrency trading, they're very nervous people because they can just lose all their money at once. But still, a lot of them earn a lot because of the volatility of this asset. So other cryptocurrencies, how many are there? Now there are over 2,000 of other different cryptocurrencies, some of which are really innovative, some of which are just purely for fun, like Dogecoin with the dog. Well, it's just about the dog, but still it is traded enormously. And other Bitcoin, or other coins here like Ethereum or Dash or Monero, Litecoin, and many others. So all cryptocurrencies capitalization, the peak was around 828 billion, which is compared to GDP of Netherlands, for example, or it is compared to the capitalization of Facebook or Microsoft or well, far more than many corporations globally. So Ethereum is another notable project that allows smart contracts to be implemented. Smart contract is actually an algorithm that allows to move some digital assets according to some rules. So Ethereum is a platform, it is an infrastructure to build smart contracts on top of it. Yes, Ethereum is just one of many, and it definitely one of the first notable projects. Another case which is notable is a case of a Russian farmer who just built his own cryptocurrency in his village called Kalionovo in Russia. So he uses cryptocurrency for barter trading between neighbors. Like you can buy a dozen eggs for 2 kolyon, or you can buy a goose for 50 kolyon. And he ran a crowdfunding campaign. And so he collected over $500,000 in 1 month, and then he runs this community of really technically savvy farmers who are building their community based on cryptocurrency. So actually anyone can build a cryptocurrency. We could build a cryptocurrency in half an hour here, and only it matters if we have some idea behind this project. So we probably heard about ICOs. ICOs was really on the hype during 2017, 2018. Actually, it stands for initial coin offering. When a new cryptocurrency is made, tokens or coins are issued, and then they are traded on crypto exchanges, and usually there is some brilliant idea in the middle. And actually in 2018, over $16 billion were raised through ICOs. And now it seems like ICO market is dead, because there were a lot of scams, there were a lot of fakes, and not many projects survived. So yeah, seems like it's dead. But right now we see that venture capital investments, they surpassed ICOs in 2018, talking about blockchain projects. And we see a new wave of litigations and different cases from Security Exchange Commissions all over the world, led by the US Security Exchange Commission, trying to protect investor rights. So I will be very brief about regulation. The main topic, of course, is money laundering, and it seems like over $2.5 billion have been laundered through cryptocurrency exchanges. And well, this is the hot topic about regulators. There are different approaches to cryptocurrencies all over the world. In some places it is totally forbidden. In some places it is really, the regulation is open and very light. Like in Switzerland there is Crypto Valley, and it attracts different projects from all over the world. In some places it is in the gray zone when there is no regulation, but it is not prohibited. Like in Russia, we are trying to, Russia tries to implement the law, and it takes a lot of time, and the law still is not there. As for GDPR, there are two core issues. The first, and they're related to blockchain nature. So the first item is that blockchain nature is an append-only ledger, and GDPR requires that the data can be modified or erased, which is not possible. And another issue is that the blockchain is it has distributed nature, but it is required that there should be a data controller. So it is much to be done in terms of regulatory guidance, in terms of adoption of conduct codes, in terms of interdisciplinary research, and so on. Of course, Cyprus aims to be among the first countries to regulate aspects of distributed ledger technology. And now let's talk about the market. The blockchain solutions market size currently it's slightly over $1 billion, and it is expected to be over $23 billion in 2023 with annual growth over 80%. What about spendings? Spendings are expected for blockchain solutions are expected to be around 16 billion by 2003, and last year there was a notable research from Greenwich Associates. They asked how much money do you spend annually, and they asked a lot of global companies, and it seems like over $3 million is annual blockchain budgets, with every 10th spends over $10 million for blockchain development. As for blockchain implementation, I mean, blockchain projects inside corporations globally, almost 50% of companies have launched a pilot or plan to do it next year. This is Accenture's figures of last year. And, well, actually, the more the merrier, because everybody tries to build a working group, and there are several consortia around the world, like R3, which is purely banking consortia, and it is comprised of most big guys from all over the world that are trying to understand how blockchain helped them with interbank transfer, how it helps them with KYC, with AML, and so on. And there are many more different industrial or just national consortia all over the world. And it seems like blockchain is also a necessity, because becoming a part of a working group it seems like it's a necessity, because most of the respondents, half of the respondents are sure that the consortium will determine their choice of blockchain network. So there are also industrial consortium, like a legal blockchain consortium that is now over 150 different firms that are trying to understand how blockchain will benefit legal tech of the future. Speaking about investors, institutional investors believe that blockchain will become the most revolutionary technology after the internet, 40%, and 31% of investors are sure that in 5 years global companies will have some person responsible for blockchain development. As for smart contracts, 60% of top managers believe that smart contracts will be key technology for their organization in the next 3 years. And actually, in 2018, 4 of 5 financial institutions are already experimenting with smart contracts. And in 2016, only 1 of 5 companies were doing it. So we see a lot of interest from corporations. It is obvious that more jobs are on the market, and new jobs. According to LinkedIn, the number of vacancies related to blockchain developers grew by 33 times in 2018. And usually a group of people responsible for blockchain in banks consists of 18 people. As for some disruptors and disruptive startups, it can be around 50 people. And this is the very recent global blockchain survey by Deloitte. Just compare 2018 with 2019. You can see the growth in every aspect. It is among top 5 strategic priorities will be critical. There is a compelling business case for 83% of corporations. And which is really important, they think they will lose a competitive advantage if they don't adopt blockchain. So it means like, it looks like everybody around is doing it, so we need to do it as well. Otherwise, we will be out of business. So in the next 5 minutes, let's run across several cases. We can definitely use blockchain in very, very different aspects, and financial operations is just one of them. So there are many governmental initiatives. Estonian government is one of the most notable. They launched in 2015, moving their e-government onto blockchain, and actually 100% of government data is stored on blockchain, and you can do deals, you can marry, and so on, whatever is necessary. It is still the blockchain it drives this e-government. So one of the first cases on e-voting was in Zug in Switzerland in 2018. We recently had this pilot in Moscow in September, and there are some other cases. Land register in Georgia in 2016, it was implemented, and now we can see really huge improvements, like registration of real estate. It used to be 1 to 3 days. Now it happens in less than 3 minutes. Users can transfer property rights online, and it used to take around 10 years. And operating costs for some services decreased by 90%. Oil post trade, it's a very interesting case. A blockchain platform called VACT, which is a combination initiative driven by BP, Shell, as oil companies, Gunvor, Koch, and Mercuria, and alike companies which are traders, several banks like Société Générale, ING, and ABN AMRO. So they are building a platform that runs all the paperwork, the post-trade paperwork. And the same platform in Switzerland, which is called Comga, is dedicated to running all the oil trade. IBM and Maersk teamed up to create blockchain solution for supply chains, which is called TradeLens. And actually, supply chain is the core issue because you can actually get rid of many intermediators, and the supply chain will be transparent. Luxury goods tracking, and actually, intellectual property, a lot is being done in this field. One of the notable examples in the post-Soviet area, mainly in Russia, is IP Chain Association, which develops blockchain for IP. JP Morgan launched its own stablecoin. From the third sector and non-commercial sector, a very interesting one is a wildlife protection by worldwide. It's about tuna fishing, so you can trace that this tuna was fished legally or not. One of the future implementation is machine-to-machine payments or transactions between different machines, which is definitely applicable in, let's say, driverless cars and their communication with each other. So, what's blockchain once again? 63% of institutional investors believe that top management lacks fundamental understanding of blockchain technology. So, it seems like everybody is doing it, but nobody really knows what it is actually. And you can see that 90% of corporate pilots in blockchain, they will be never implemented. So somebody is doing something, but then it is not happening in the production, in production. And I have 40 seconds. I think it's enough to cover blockchain education. 56% of the world's top universities offer at least one course on crypto and blockchain. I think Cornell and Stanford are one of the leaders. It is taught in most of the key business schools globally, and actually Cyprus is ahead We saw the presentation previously. It is very impressive that it was the first in blockchain education globally, first university in the world to offer blockchain course, and so on. So I'm right on time. Yeah, thank you very much.